Well, good morning, Northlake. Hope you're doing well. Praying for you this morning, praying for our church family, praying for our community that God continues to work in all of our lives, and praying that God keeps us sane in these times of not being able to do a whole lot, but be at home. And let me just encourage you real quick before we get into our passage this morning that this is one of those opportunities in life that we very rarely ever see where everything just kind of goes time out and we're able to spend time as families. And so I want to encourage you to make the most of this season that we are in to invest in the relationships in your family. Okay, this week we have been looking at the walk of Jesus, the last final days of Jesus on this earth before he went to the cross. And this morning we find ourselves on Thursday. It's the last part or the remaining part of Mark chapter 14. And in Mark chapter 14, we see in very short and quick order where Mark lets us know what all took place on Thursday. So Thursday, this is what takes place. On Thursday, they observed the Passover together, Jesus and the disciples. We know that this is also not from Mark's gospel, but from the other gospels. This is when specifically John's gospel, that Jesus washed the feet of the disciples. Jesus speaks to his betrayer there at the Last Supper. He tells Peter that he's going to deny him. They broke bread. Jesus instituted the Lord's Supper. And then after that, they go and they pray in the garden. They go and pray in the garden. And while they're praying in the garden, Jesus is arrested, and he is sent before the Jewish council. So that is Thursday. That's how we wrap up the evening of Thursday. Now, when I'm reading this passage, a few things come to mind. Specifically, Jesus in the garden. In Mark chapter 14, as Jesus is praying in the garden, he takes his disciples. They go to the Garden of Gethsemane, and then he takes a few of them to say, hey, come with me. You in particular, come with me. So he takes Peter, James, and John, Mark chapter 14, verse 33, and he said to them, listen what he says. He says, my soul is very sorrowful, even to death. So remain here and watch. Remain here and watch. But do you see what Jesus is saying? Jesus is going into this time of prayer with the Father. In fact, in this time of prayer with the Father, he's going to cry out, Abba, Father, let this cup pass from me. That is his prayer. Jesus knows the cross is going to be tomorrow. He knows that tomorrow he is going to experience crucifixion. And you can only imagine how he felt, the anxiety, the burden, the feeling of absolute despair, and so much so that he calls to the Father and says, "Oh Father, let this cup pass." But then he goes, "But whatever your will, may your will be done." And so the cup doesn't pass. That wasn't the will of the Father. But in this moment, as Jesus is praying in the garden, he goes to his disciples. He says, "My soul is very sorrowful, even to death." Basically what Jesus is saying is, gentlemen, I feel like dying. That's how heavy this moment is for me. I rather be dead. So this is God himself in the flesh, Jesus, 100% man and 100% God. And he goes to his disciples, and in this moment of vulnerability and authenticity with his closest disciples, he says, gentlemen, Peter, James, John, I just want to die. I want to die. Can you imagine that? That type of vulnerability and authenticity? We don't see that in the world around us and in our relationships. But Jesus was so vulnerable and authentic. It reminds me of one of our core values here at Northlake, which is authenticity. That we want to be an authentic community of people where we are able to share our hurts, we're able to share our disappointments, our failures, our sin. We're able to share like Jesus did. If we're in this situation, my soul is so sorrowful, I'd rather be dead. Authenticity. Jesus exemplified vulnerability. See, many times we think vulnerability is a weakness, but it's actually a strength. I love what Brene Brown says. Brene Brown says, vulnerability is not weakness. It's our greatest measure of courage. See, being vulnerable, authentic with other people, letting them know about what's really going on in here is the most courageous thing we can do. And as a church family, I pray that we will be that courageous in our relationships, in our community, whether it's in our community groups, our discipleship groups, and our discipling relationships with our brothers and sisters, that we will make a point that there is no time to be fake in my walk with other people. I want to be real. I want to be authentic. I pray that's one of the things that's said about our church family, is that the Northlake Church family, they are authentic people. We may be messed up, but we are authentic and we are real and we are not fake. And so Jesus exemplifies this here in the garden. Well, I hope that you will join us tomorrow evening for our Good Friday service. It'll start streaming at 6 o'clock. And then join us if you're able on Sunday morning, 7 o'clock for our sunrise, our drive-in sunrise service at the Laga Vista High School. It starts at 7, promptly at 7, and the parking lot will be open at 6:30. And then also on Sunday, we will be streaming our online Easter service, which will be much different than our sunrise service. So I hope you'll just spend some time connecting with us online this week. But church, we love you. We miss you in all of this, especially as we celebrate Good Friday tomorrow. Remember, Christ was crucified and Jesus died for you. He died for you and he died for me. His blood washes my sin, cleanses me, and has made me righteous. And so it is good news. That's why we call it the gospel. Good news. God bless you, and we'll talk to you again Friday night at the Good Friday service.